Since it seems like everyone is all about arguing these days, let's make an argument for a Connor Zary long-term extension.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me today. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Today, we're going to be making an argument for Connor Zary and why the Flames should just be smart and sign him long term. This is something that they have made. These are mistakes they've made in the past, and we need to learn from them and apply them now. And could things be different because there's an entirely different general manager in charge? And what might that contract look like? Make sure you are subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We're here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your Calgary Flames every day. I think Connor Zary is such an interesting player to talk about because he played 140 AHL games and worked his way through injuries, through, every ounce of adversity possible, especially where he was drafted in, 2020, and he did not have that regular development time that we had seen up until that point, and we're finally seeing now. But it's tricky, and he dealt with ankle injury, a leg injury. He missed time due to these injuries, and to see him get that unexpected call up last season, it must have felt really good. I think that he absolutely deserved it. And I don't know if anyone saw the how long term it was. I think a lot of people, including myself, thought that it was just going to be, a quick few week sort of deal and he'd be back with the Wranglers. But his immediate success and impact within the Flames lineup was needed, and it earned him a permanent spot. I think that one thing that I've really enjoyed about Zary is how opposite him and Pospisil are. Not in terms of production, obviously, because both of them can, score and tally up those assists. But Zary doesn't play aggressive. He doesn't walk a very fine line. He plays, a cleaner style of hockey that I think is something that's more sustainable for the Flames and really his whole career. But I'm so excited for what the future holds for the Flames and Connor Zary. I think that he is someone that is going to be a pivotal player in this rebuild and this new generation of Flames that are, that are being birthed in front of our very eyes. And he finished last season with 34 points in 64 games. And no one saw this coming. Like I'd mentioned before, everyone thought that it was going to be a shorter term thing because, they needed a body up in the NHL. And then, he was going to continue developing in the AHL because he'd missed a chunk of time with injuries. And I personally contribute a lot of his success, obviously, to his own ability, but I think the chemistry that him, Kadri, and Pospisil had was something like it was like a whole new level of hockey unlocked within the Flames. And Kadri, he was able to teach Zary, not what mistakes not to make, or maybe trying and approaching plays differently, or just having a reliable center that, a seasoned, a veteran center taking on two rookies was definitely, uh, it's obviously not unheard of, but it just felt like Kadri was babysitting at first, but obviously it paid off. And I think that this may be a controversial take, but I think that Zary should have been a Calder finalist over Luke Hughes. I know, I know, it's a bold take, but for the Flames to have Old Faithful there with Kadri and the two kids was great. And I think, because it was so reliable and so dependable and so consistent, and Zary was so consistent in his scoring, he should have received, a little more recognition for that, especially on a team of the Flames caliber. And that's not to discredit Luke Hughes, but there's only 3 spots, and obviously you're not taking Bedard's, and there's room for more than one Connor in that category. So I just think Zary was the better option. But I mean, hey, I don't get a say in these things. But coming up next, we're going to talk about how the Flames can avoid another Matthew Tkachuk situation if they do what's right and do a long-term deal right off of the bat. And we will be right back after this. If you're like me, you love going to live events, and I use Game Time to get in on all of those live event actions. I used Game Time to get myself to Montreal to see the Flames and Habs this week. I used them to go see the Oilers and Flames last month. Game Time is the app that you need to be using and taking advantage of. And Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. I love Game Time. Their customer service is unmatched. They're fantastic, and they have the best ticketing policy within the industry. And right now, Game Time is having an exclusive zone deal for NHL Winter Classic event at Wrigley Field. Go to the Game Time app to purchase tickets and get 10% off bleacher seating and 20 to 25% off on home plate seating or area seating. Game Time Picks has the curation that makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, live shows, and more. And I love using the all-in pricing feature that shows the pricing up front, so I'm not surprised or scared by any secret fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. And of course, get ready to tackle NFL action this season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So if you're feeling lucky and want to place anytime scoring on Nazem Kadri or Matthew Coronado or even Connor Zary, perhaps, just open up your FanDuel app and do it all on the same screen where you can see the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more right on that same page where you're going to be placing your bets. Just visit fanduel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's fanduel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We're here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Your team every day. When approaching contract extensions now, I think we all, especially with young talent, very talented players that are in a different tier than your standard player. I think Flames fans are always going to look back at Matthew Tkachuk. He wanted to sign long term in 2018, and Brad Treliving said, short term it is. And that's what he did. And obviously, ultimately, they had to come to an agreement. Like, it's a negotiation, and both sides agreed to it. But the smarter decision would have been to go long term immediately out of the gate. You listen to the player, right? Especially a player of Matthew Tkachuk's caliber. Like, I'm sorry, but that star potential was there very clearly from the start. And I think, Connor Zary, like, there's only ever going to be one Matthew Tkachuk. And Connor Zary isn't necessarily like the same high-end caliber elite player that Tkachuk is, but he is still a great net front presence. He drives the net. He scores. Like, he plays well. And he's a player that you should absolutely, you should be locking him up long term. It doesn't make sense to, if that's an option that's on the table, uh, obviously you don't need to jump at the first figure that him and his team bring to the table, but, like, yes, it's a no-brainer. And I think that, bridge deals can be great. They can be very helpful, especially for players that do need to prove themselves a little bit more, or they need to, maybe they aren't sure. Like, they just want that. They just want that short-term deal. And it's not because they don't want to be part of the team, but because that's just what they're comfortable with. However, it makes so much sense for the Flames to lock him up long term. He has consistent production. He plays well wherever you put him in the lineup. Yes, I know he has been kind of at some points this season and in certain games, but you know, not Pospisil. Huska called him out and kind of said, he wasn't moving his feet, so we switched with Kuzmenko, and he scored the next game. So I feel like while it is only his sophomore NHL season, there's so much promise there that you should be investing in this player. And there are, like, I look at Matty Beniers. Matty Beniers is a very talented player who just signed a long-term extension with Seattle, the team that drafted him. And I think the Flames should be doing the same exact thing here. You need a young player that is capable of playing center and wing. And here he is. Like, it feels like this is a very smart and obvious decision. And personally, I think that Zary has like a little bit more leverage here because of that. The Flames have, limited organizational depth when it comes to players down the middle, and Zary has the ability to be that guy. And I think the Flames just need to, I don't think that there's a desire to not like, to move on from him or anything like that, but I do worry what a short-term deal would look like, or what it would what you would do there, because you want to eat up as much of his UFA years as possible, right? That is the only like thing that makes sense. And when you're approaching these, these what do you call it? negotiations and these contracts, right? You want to eat up as much as you can, because ultimately we know that like you don't want them to go to UFA. Basically, you don't want them to become a UFA. And that sounds like really messed up when you think about it. Like, you just want all this control over a player, but like, you're building a team and you need to have control of players. I think that Zary is just one of the few players that the Flames have that are truly worth investing in long term. I think that these next few years, while they're going to be challenging and trying, I think that, for Zary to build up his NHL, really take the step in the right direction and build himself an NHL career, I think it's smart to not let him just walk away after 3 years. I don't know how many other ways I can say it. Is we can't let this get to what Matthew Tkachuk's situation was, and just a bridge deal may not be the best option. That's just my honest opinion, and I think there's always going to be risk signing a player long term, or signing a player at any point, really, but he shows a lot of upside. And it's not like it's just quick flashes of the upside either. So we'll have to see, what the Flames' plan is. I don't think we're going to see anything. I shouldn't say that. There's a chance we could see something during the season, but I don't necessarily believe that that's going to be the case here. I am going to check something. So he doesn't have arbitration rights this year. So that's a good thing, I would say. You obviously never want to go to arbitration. It just creates a very strange situation and dynamic between the team, as we've seen with Jeremy Swayman. So I think, there's a chance that the Flames do sign him long term this summer, and that would be the best option. Like, I don't know how else to say it other than, he just wrapped up, or he's wrapping up his ELC. Let's get him a nice raise and keep him around for when the Flames bring home the Stanley Cup in 5 years, 6, 7, 8 years. Where do we stand on that? But that is a whole nother can of worms. Coming up next, we are going to talk about what a contract might look like number-wise, term, and money-wise. So let's regroup just like those numbers right after this. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to hire or to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that gets better every time you use it and helps find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Leverage over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day. Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, so the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your job more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. And just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. You need to hire, you need Indeed. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, and you can follow me on Twitter at JustBelmosto. I will be the first person to tell you, I am not a numbers gal. I am not a contract expert. I will never have true faith in what I packaged together in a trade or what I fully believe a contract may be worth. I I have little faith in my numbers, but this is just based on what I feel is fair. I think that, are you looking at 7 or 8 years? Personally, I would like to go the full 8, but I would understand about the 7. I think that that's, pretty fair too. And honestly, the first thing that kind of came to mind, is a $6 million figure. You're like, that's a lot. Yes, that is a lot of money. But you have to remember that number one, I'm not a cap expert. Not a cap expert, not a contract expert. I just picked a number that I felt was right. Charlie Coyle makes around that money. Andrew Mangiapane makes around that money. Brad Marchand makes around that money. Patrice Bergeron made around that money. So I don't necessarily think it's an unreasonable number, especially if you're locking it in now versus, you know, his value is only going to go up from here. So it might look like a lot right now, but, you know, 2 years when he's, a 30 goal scorer back-to-back seasons, okay, like the $6 million looks pretty good. And then you can't forget that the cap's going up, right? So you could go into this and find out that, $8 million. Why not? You never want to start at the number you actually want because it's just going to go down. You need to shoot for the stars, um, which is why players tend to come in high. Because it's like when you go to a car dealership, right? You don't go in with your trade and say, well, I want $15,000 for this, when that's like actually what you want. You need to like go in with a little bit. No, no. Let me rephrase that. You don't start at the number that like you truly believe your car's worth. You go a little bit high. That way you might be able to get a little extra out of it, right? A few hundred, a few grand, whatever. And that's more than the 15 grand that you realistically thought you were going to get. So maybe that's what you do here. And I think that's absolutely what you need to do here, especially where we're entering uncharted territory with the cap going up. And it's not going up by like a crazy amount of money, but it's going up enough where it's like, oh, you could add another forward at that price. So how do you divvy up that addition, that extra money? And I mean, I think spending it on Connor Zary is a no-brainer personally, but I could you flirt with like a 6.5 to 7.5 number? Is that something that, that sounds outrageous, especially when there's, when Nazem Kadri is making $7 million, but you have to you have to look at it like if you're investing in this kid's future and you think that he is going to be that next player, that Nazem Kadri, you think that he's going to make such an impact on your team and you have seen it, and not just that you think that that's what's going to happen, but you believe in him, and you always want to pay someone what they're worth. I don't care um what the career field is, and that should always be the goal. And I think this next like generation of players, especially the ones that are going to probably likely see $100 million cap space, situation, I think that that's going to it's going to test some people. The same way that, defensemen making like 9, 10, $11 million started like really testing people and being like, what is this? Or even when contracts started hitting the double digits for forwards. I remember when, you know, 10 million, like a $10 million contract seemed so absurd. And now we've seen 10, 11, 12, 13, $14 million per year. And that's how it's going to get. So like the $4 million contracts you're seeing now will be inflated to like $6 million. Is Connor Zary more likely to fall into that $4.5 $5 million player? Yes, for this chunk of time. Do I think it'll be worth more in the long run? Yes. And that's what I think you need to keep an open mind with when you see these figures, especially for young players like Matty Beniers, signed at, I believe it's $7.5 million a year. I think that that's fair because you look at that now, and again, that's like $5-ish million. Like that's, you have to kind of remember where things are heading and what you're looking at now. But I really want to see the Flames lock Zary up long term. I think that he is one of the few players that the Flames should really focus on building around and, again, continue to invest in him. I think there are a few other players that are also part of this group, but I need to see a little bit more uh, effort from them before I can say they need to be inked long term. Dustin Wolf is an automatic no-brainer. So we're talking forwards. The defense is still really a work in progress, but we could see a world where the Flames have a future with Dustin Wolf, Connor Zary, and maybe Martin Pospisil and Matt Coronado. Maybe those are your guys. Or you just play Dryden Hunt in the NHL forever. But that will do it for me on today's episode of Locked On Flames. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you have a fantastic evening. And the Flames drop the puck here in just about at 7, just about an hour from now. So go Flames go. Tonight is my Stanley Cup against the Bruins. So make sure you're watching wherever you enjoy the game, and make sure you're following this podcast on your favorite podcasting platforms and subscribe on YouTube. We're here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Your Calgary Flames every day. And until the next time, stay safe, stay warm, stay dry, stay hydrated, and remember to be kind.